everyone. Welcome to the Lawyer Lifter podcast, or Mel's Minutes, where I talk about lifting, life, and business. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Lawyer Lifter podcast. And actually, this is a different podcast. I know I say that every time, but a lot has happened. We are in person with Juan Sanchez, who is my friend, a really good friend. That's how we started. And also coach and business owner of Top End Strength, TES. And we're also live in person at the Mel Manor, my new home here in Yorba Linda. And today we're going to talk and catch up on, the fact that we are 3 weeks or so before Nationals, which is in Salt Lake City, Utah. I don't know where that's from, where that is on a map. I don't even know if there's like a major mall in Salt Lake City. But so I was actually just catching up with Juan because in preparation for this podcast, I was like, well, what did happen? Because with personally my training, I've always just had a goal and have put blinders on and just kind of would chip away at that goal and just nose to the grindstone. So I was looking on my phone and I was like, oh my gosh, what was I doing like a year ago to date? And actually I pulled up, and this is an accurate picture. This is August 10th, 2023. And I remember this date so clearly because I had called Juan up and I said, oh, I just got medically cleared to go back to powerlifting, and that was 6 weeks. So Winter was born June 28th, and my doctors just examined me and just made sure they knew always during my pregnancy what type of sport I was in. And I think from previous episodes, everybody knows that I was lifting actually 10 hours prior to active labor. And so I called up Juan August 10th, 2023, and I said, hey, can we start? And he said, yeah, sure. Plus, I wanted to talk to you about something else. And I'm like, great. And we met at my other client's facility, which is in Anaheim, Exceed Performance, and we started. On top of that, Juan was looking at some commercial spaces for Top End. And what's funny is, even though we talk about Top End, that wasn't the name that was the beginning. Yeah. Top End was not Top End. So that date, we were thinking about a spot. We had a different name, and I started training. So actually, what name did Top End have before Top End?
So before Top End, it was actually called Barbell Avenue. And that was honestly like one of the hardest things was coming up with a name, to be honest. And I was throwing around so many names at the time, like leading up to it. And my friends actually, one of my good friends is actually the one who pitched like Barbell Avenue. And I was like, okay, it could work. I kind of like it. And then, but I wasn't like really sold on it. It was just kind of like a placeholder, to be honest. Yeah. And then it just kind of came to me one day. I think I was like listening to a powerlifting podcast and they kind of mentioned like Top End. And then I was like, huh. We use this word a lot in powerlifting, like Top End Strength. And I was like, it just kind of clicked. And I was like, that's going to be the name. And then I reached out to Mel and I was like, hey, can we change the name?
Yeah. And what's funny is that we stood Barbell Avenue up and did all of that in LLC stuff. And I think that may have originally been the one on the lease where Top End currently is right now. But I think that, I don't know if any female has told you this, but when Juan came to me and said, oh, it's a Barbell Avenue, my brain immediately went to, oh, like Leg Avenue. And Leg Avenue is like a slutty female like costume
shop. Really? I didn't know that. I did not know that at all.
Yeah. Anyway, but so that leads me to Top End Strength. And you said like, okay, it's utilized a lot in the powerlifting community, but a lot of people don't know what that means, right? And I think that explaining what is Top End Strength and then, talking about Well, like for a business owner, yeah, it's important to figure out like that name
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately that is your identifier for the brand. And then also from that name, from the brand comes your mottos. And then most importantly, who is your demographic? So what does top end mean?
Yeah, so essentially, top end strength is really just like another word for powerlifting, right? Like in powerlifting, you're training that one rep max, right? And so when you go to a competition, you're trying to exert your top end strength, right? Like the peak of it, which is not always there. But yeah, essentially, top end strength is just another word for powerlifting and that one rep max. So yeah, that I was like really happy when I came up with the name, and I pitched it to my girlfriend Jenny, and she was like, "Yep, I think that's the one." Like we knew immediately. Like I think when you come up with like a name for whatever, business or something like that, I feel like you'll know like when you come to that correct answer. And I was like, "Yep, this is the one," and I'm really happy that we went with top end strength, and the color scheme that we picked is great because like it kind of pops everywhere now. Like I was talking to Morgan Aquino Garcia, who's a very high level powerlifter, and he was like, it's cool because like now whenever I go to meets and I see the green everywhere, I kind of already know like, oh hey, that's top end strength. So it kind of um, it kind of pops out everywhere. So again, really happy that we ended up changing the name like kind of like literally last minute,
Yeah.
right at the end. The green actually would have worked for Barbell Avenue as well too, because it's kind of like a street like sign color thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really like where we came up with the green, and then it ended up just kind of working for top end strength too.
And I feel like for those that aren't familiar with Juan's coaching style, and this predates top end, I feel like top end, it had to be top end because of the way that you even program and coach. It's always in search of that top end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being with Juan for so many years, I feel like the even how you program, it's like a purposeful how do we get to that one rep max.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, that's like the goal of powerlifting, right? Is to get as strong as possible. So my goal or my job is to try to help whoever I work with, obviously, to achieve that top end strength. Yeah.
So then what came out of top end strength though is the other motto that just keeps getting hashtag. But that's actually what's funny is it's like what Juan says, when you're a business owner and you're thinking about your brand and your name, everything else like flows, and the tag for top end has been don't miss.
Yeah.
And then so can you speak to like why that's associated with top end?
um, I honestly don't even know how it first came about. I think I had a client competing, and I wasn't going to be available to handle them on the day. So like, cause I was going to be at a different competition, and I ended up texting that client like the morning of the competition. I said, "Hey, good luck. You're going to kill it today. And whatever you do, don't miss." And then like, I think that client went on and like screenshotted it and posted it like on Instagram, and it said like wise words from like my coach or something like that. And honestly, it just kind of stuck, right? Because like, and that's what I tell people now is like, whatever you do, like, don't miss, because like when you go to a competition, it's like you don't want to miss, right? Like you want to go 9 for 9 and put together the best possible day to put you in a position to win, right? So that's kind of how the don't miss came about, and now everybody just kind of uses it, which is cool too. And now we even have it on our hats
Yeah.
here, and on our comp tees it says on the sleeve, don't miss.
Well, I feel like that is actually pretty unique because I have been competing for a while, and when and through different coaches, but it wasn't. It's funny how like even when powerlifting, you hone in on those specific cues
Yeah.
that work, but like when you're trying to establish like your heaviest or your strongest per lift, you're not necessarily thinking don't miss. Like some lifters just want to establish whatever that is and not really thinking like, oh, if I get 3 out of like the 9, I'm cool. Like,
Yeah.
and so that had always been my thought, or I'll just like, I won't bomb out, but it doesn't matter if I miss, like as long as I get like what I get. But it's funny you say that because in my qualifying meet in the beginning of June at my other client's facility in Fullerton, Omni Strength. When you check in for your powerlifting meet, you have to put in your openers, and Juan already prefabricates that stuff in True Coach, which is an app. And he had done that, and it said like, okay, don't miss. But what's funny is like, I hadn't actually approached a meet thinking, all right, like don't miss. And that qualifier, and my cat is just here.
She wants to be in the shot.
I had just thought, okay, I don't want to miss. And I think going into your competition thinking, okay, lift, like concentrate on each lift, like even though it's an opener, even though it's the second attempt, like just take it lift by lift by lift, actually carries on to establishing that top end per lift.
Yeah, 100%. I think, that's a good way to put it, is like take it attempt by attempt, right? And again, the goal is always, to go 9 for 9 and put the best day possible, because also like with your meet, it was like, we need like every kilo to kind of hit this. Like I wanted to make sure that you were going to be 6 for 6 going into deadlift. That way we could just lock up that QT on that second attempt. And after that, I was just like, okay, cool. Like, let's see where we're at now. We got that first goal out of the way, which was, hitting the QT for you. And I was like, okay, we're in a position here to potentially like take first place, right? At the local meet. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put on the bar, what that's going to give us. So if you missed at that point, I'm like, okay, we got the first goal. Like that's all that really mattered. But yeah, I never understood when like people will come off like a meet and go like 5 for 9 and 6 for 9. And I'm just like, either something like really bad happened or you just had really horrible attempt selection. And it's like, you need to learn to adjust on the day. And, that's what I like to do with clients is like, hey, we're going to take what I think is there on the day and not really try to force anything, especially like at a higher level meets, where you're going for placing, right? And sometimes you maybe need to take a little bit less, to kind of like not as a risky attempt to make sure you don't miss.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how that came about.
And then, so I have such a history with Juan where, we became friends and we lifted together, and then he became my coach, and then now you're a business owner and Top End is a client under my law firm. And I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was reviewing just the history leading up to this podcast, and it blew my mind how you've been in like huge facets of my life. And that big thing with the progression of being pregnant, but then also I thought what was most impressive was after being pregnant. And I wanted to say that when I look, I've never been focused on how a body looks, because I think, and Juan works with a lot of females, I think that powerlifting specifically lends itself to female body dysmorphia and eating disorders, because this is a sport where your strength is assigned to a weight class, and there's immense pressure to be in a weight class. And then on top of that, when you are a female athlete and your body does the most insane things being pregnant, like that level of anxiety and dysmorphia just skyrockets. But I think that with your training, especially postpartum, the focus was really on the doing of the body versus like where we were, like in terms of how much weight was on the bar or how much weight I was at the time. What was your like goals like postpartum?
Yeah, so I think like, we mentioned when the cameras weren't on, it was like we literally just kind of went back into what you were doing, like literally leading up until I think you, like you said, you were training 10 hours before you delivered. And then 6 weeks later, we kind of like basically just worked backwards, right? We went back to like those box squats, maybe I think block pulls. I think you were doing like some incline stuff. And then we just kind of slowly started working our way to like the comp stuff, right? The comp squat and comp bench and comp deadlift. I was like, right now I just kind of need to work our way back to that, and the strength will come, because like I knew, whatever I wrote you were going to do, and that's kind of how you've always been with training. It's just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So yeah, I mean, that first goal was just like, okay, I just need you to get you to move again slowly, and kind of start off conservative, just so we would make sure, because like I knew you wanted to get back to nationals, right? And that was like the goal after that. So I was like, first we need to get you to just be comp squatting, comp benching, comp deadlifting first, and then we worry about the rest of it. So like that was the goal when you came to me and you're like, hey, I'm cleared, can you meet me here?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then obviously your doctor gave us some recommendations, and then a lot of the stuff that I learned on the course that I took for the pre and post partum training. And then, yeah, I mean, within like I can't even remember, maybe within like a block or two, we were back to like full range motion, I think.
Yeah.
We introduced the belt, knee sleeves, all that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I think within like a couple blocks, we were like back to full range motion training. And because like, again, you trained literally all the way up until you delivered. And I think that's what made that transition even easier, because you essentially trained, and you took 6 weeks off and then came back and started training again.
I will say, for all of those females that are family planning or thinking about family planning and have that background in a strength sport, even like any very high impact sport, that the thing that you have to be extremely patient about and give yourself a lot of grace will be like your core, because for how many months, like your core, like just, I mean, you were housing a life. And so I remember where I just couldn't even do a pull up. I couldn't even like sit up. Like it was like jello, and it was so foreign because it felt so squishy and just like an empty cavity. It's like with Alien Romulus coming next week, like that's kind of what it was. It's just like, oh my gosh, like for how many months, like I'm growing, and then you give birth, and then you all of a sudden have your body back, but you have to like rebuild all of that. So I would say the biggest trauma would be in that core, and everything on a strength sport really depends on strengthening that core. And also, we worked really hard with Mike Shea and Juan to adapt to my constantly changing body, because even though I was really focused at the time, I was training 5 days a week. And I'll get into why I say 5 days, because towards maybe a block or two before my qualifying meet, and now I'm at 4 days a week of training. I'll say why that's important, but I was so focused on just the training that I had to relearn breathing. And so that's when Juan says like, oh, we added the belt and we added the knee sleeves. It's because for so long we didn't do belt, we didn't do knee sleeves, because that would have constricted like the growth of my belly and the life that I was growing. And also there's a significant, in Instagram, I just want to kind of like take the blindfold off. Like you see these moms who are like, oh, like that they get to wherever they bounce back. And I want to just also say, like, that word bounce back is awful. Like, if you have a kid and like whatever, and you're female, never think like, I just want to bounce back, because you're never gonna bounce back. What you get is a new body, and you can now reconfigure it to whatever you want. And I've been really vocal on Instagram, and I want to say it now, is like, actually having winter has made me stronger mentally, physically, emotionally. And yes, like you will end up with, what, not stretch marks. Some women have stretch marks, which that's anatomically or biologically, that's what you have. But, like wrinkles or whatever, because there's, your body just has extra skin, and it takes time to get that extra skin to get back to its like tightness, and you need to give yourself grace. And I bring that up because I was scared to put my power belt on because like my extra skin would catch, and I would tell Juan, like, we had to keep adjusting my belt to accommodate that, like, the new body. And then, even squatting was so painful because my skin would get caught, my extra skin. So I was like dialing down, but I also had like pregnancy, like remnants. And then even with knee sleeves, like I started off like, I was still swollen and getting like back to it. And I went through like different sizes of knee sleeves, like it, and that's just like adapting.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like with a coach who understands that the female body, I think, even goes through enormous changes postpartum, but also, like he had told me, I think, like I said, like two blocks before the local meet, okay, we're gonna take out a day. And that reason being, like, Juan had said, well, you can't actually get any quality from a fifth day because you're already kind of getting fatigued.
Yeah. I made the executive decision because Mel always wanted to do like 5-6 days a week of training, and I'm like, I just don't feel like we're getting that much more out of a fifth day for you. I was like, one, also two, like, you have a baby now, you own your own firm and very, very busy. I was like, sometimes, and again, this is like something that, how I approach training too. Sometimes less is more, I'd say most people are training 4 days a week. Some people 5 days. I train 5 days a week, but I live at the gym. So, but yeah, for you, I was just like, I just don't feel like, I think this day is just like overly fatiguing you. I was like, I don't feel like we're getting that much more out of it. I was like, I guarantee you're going to feel a lot better if we just kind of take that day away and kind of just fit everything into 4 days. And then that way you can rest, 3 days out of the 7 days. And immediately, I mean, like, your fatigue went down, training kind of started to pick up a little bit better, leading into that Omni meet. And I was like, oh, okay, like, you don't need 5 days of training right now. Yeah. Maybe eventually you will need a fifth day, but we'll kind of keep like pushing those 4 days until like, maybe progress stalls, but I don't feel like we'll need to add a fifth day.
Yeah, and I will say too, during this journey, I feel like it's been a year. To me, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been a year.
I know.
It's so fast. Yeah. Like I will say though, I'll admit, like I told Juan and Mike, like, I'm going back to nationals. I'm going to compete. But like during that process, I had a lot of times like second guess, and I was like, oh God, am I gonna do this? Like, it's so fast, and my body went through so much. Like, can I do this? And it's crazy to me because now we're 3 weeks out or so from nationals, but my attitude as a mother has completely changed, the perspective of how I'm approaching nationals. I think that when you have a kid and you're competing at this high level, it really puts things in perspective, and you become extremely more laser focused, not only because your time is not yours, it's like your kids, but also because you're trying to establish like an example, and you're really doing it because you want to show your kid like, this is fun, this is it will create discipline, it will create just focus, and a way to show like you put in this hard work and you'll get to a goal. And I think that that's going into this national competition, I can tell like I'm very, very relaxed. Even with the qualifying meet, I'm just like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it, and at the end of the day, like we're just gonna execute, and we're
Yeah.
not gonna miss.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
100%. Yeah. I had no doubt that you were going to be able to get there. I'm not going to lie and say like, okay, like there is a little bit of pressure obviously on me to make sure that, I do everything possible to help you get there. So like at that Omni meet, I was like, okay, I was like, we're going to need a perfect day. I was like, at least like, 8 for 9 day minimum to hit that QT, right? Because it was like strength was definitely starting to trend in the right direction, like leading into that meet. I was like, okay, she's starting to hit some of like numbers that you hadn't touched like pre-pregnancy. So I was like, okay, like we're heading in the right direction. I was like, did we have enough time to do this? And yeah, I mean, you ended up, having a perfect day.
yeah.
And then, so now we just got to do it again in a few weeks.
So, in terms of like, if you take me as an example, with your demographic as a business owner of a powerlifting facility, what would you say? Like, who are you trying to speak to? Like, who are the clients and lifters of Top End? Are they already competitors? Are they those who want to compete? Are they moms?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm open to coaching everyone and anyone. I tell this to anyone I coach is like really the only thing I require is like effort. I really like people who take training very, very seriously and are, have goals. And again, like I don't need everyone. I'm not going to coach everyone like that wants to step on a platform, right? And that's okay. As long as like they're putting in the work to, get better at the end of the day. And it's like, so yeah, I mean, I do have a good amount of clients that do compete for sure. I'd say like the majority of my roster right now competes, whether that's at a local level, national level. I think, this year we'll probably have, or next year we'll have a good amount of people going to regional meets and stuff like that. But I do have some people on my roster that's just general strength. And again, all I ask for is like effort at the end of the day. It's like they're communicating with me, they're constantly like uploading videos to True Coach so I can review. Those are the type of people that I really enjoy coaching. I don't really like coaching people that, just don't give effort. They kind of like don't log anything for me at the end of the day. Yeah, again, like coaching, I'll coach moms, I'll coach, younger lifters, older lifters, anybody who wants to just kind of, tap into this like strength training that we do,
At Top End, what is the community and how have you built it?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when I opened Top End, I had a good amount of, my clients and obviously support from the community that I've been in for almost a decade now, I guess. They all came over, so a lot of them knew, but now it's like building a community with like some of the newer people. And I think just having a good community that kind of came along with me is like those guys and are helping build the community that we have now. And we'll probably have our first community event October 12th is when I plan to do like a 1 year celebration for the gym. So members, guests, all that. We'll probably have like some food and stuff like that to celebrate 1 year of Top End.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
we'll go from there. So yeah, October 12th will be the date for our first like official like community date. So that'll be awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I'm looking forward to that. News to me.
News to everyone. We haven't really announced it, but yeah, October 12th is the day. Yeah.
So you are about to celebrate 1 year.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, now I have two questions. Now that you're very close to 1 year, did you anticipate where you are now? That's the first question. And then what do you have in store? Because I ask all my business clients to think about like in year 3 and then in year 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't super nervous to open a business. Again, like my background is I went to school for strength and conditioning, kinesiology, no business knowledge at all. But I was just like this, I feel like this was going to be like my next step in this like coaching thing. And it's like, okay, like, am I going to, continue to coach forever? Obviously I want to continue to coach for as long as I possibly can, but it's like, okay, like once I'm done coaching, like what am I going to be doing after this? And it's like, okay, I really love this powerlifting thing. yeah, I love the sport of powerlifting. I can watch it, listen to it all day. So I was like, okay, like I think this is the next step is trying to open my own facility. And it was hard. I mean, like, I was like, am I going to be able to do this? Like, I was super nervous, super scared, leaving a stable coaching job where I was at before, and then kind of doing my own thing. And like, again, luckily I had been in powerlifting space. You know, I've been powerlifting since like 2016, and I've been coaching for, again, going, I think 6 years now at this point. So I've established a good client base, you know, a good amount of people who follow, yourself included. And a lot of people that have just trusted me to take over their training. So like when I came with this idea to some of my clients, they were like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. You know, we'll come with you. Um, and yeah, again, like if you would have asked me 5-6 years ago if this is where I'd be, I'd say no, absolutely not. I didn't have any desire to coach powerlifting. I was just kind of powerlifting for myself because I just wanted to do like something competitive, and then kind of started going to school for strength and conditioning because I really just enjoyed the training and all that stuff. And then, you know, kind of fell into coaching, and here we are now, you know, 6 years into the coaching thing and with my own facility. And, you know, yeah, if you would have asked me like a year ago, is this where we're going to be? I was like, I don't know. I have no idea where we're going to be in a year. But, you know, things have been going really, really well. And again, I've had a good support from the powerlifting community here. And, yeah, I think we're coming up on 1 year, and I think we're going to probably be looking for a new space here soon. Yeah, because we quickly outgrowing the one we're currently in.
Yeah.
Which is, again, not a bad spot to be in, I guess.
Yeah, you know what's funny, and I will say this as the business lawyer, is that Uplift Law really does dominate the fitness community here in California, and we've reached other states, but TES happens to be the only client that ever had asked me to negotiate just 1 year on a lease. And in all of my years, like, that hasn't happened. And it was, I think, like, to give yourself credit, like, you were like, no, I only want 1 year. And I'm like, okay, are you sure? And now here we are, and you are outgrown and looking for another space, another challenge. So
yeah,
next would be year 3. Like, what do you see TES accomplishing at year 3?
So definitely eventually hiring another coach, because I can only coach so many people, right? I don't want to coach 70, 80 people. That's just like way too much. I think the sweet spot for me is anywhere from like 50 to 55, and we're pretty much there. Again, like, my roster has grown since I've opened Top End. I've had a good amount of people reach out for coaching, whether that's online or in person, just because, you know, in this like powerlifting space and social media, it's like we all post our training, you know, we all post, like, tag our coaches. So honestly, a lot of it's been like word of mouth. I really haven't done like a whole lot of marketing for Top End. It's just kind of all been word of mouth, and, you know, people see that, and people are like, oh, who does this person get coached by, you know? And they see that, you know, they're getting stronger, they're having really good meets, and, you know, so a lot of it's been word of mouth. But yeah, I'm getting close to my cap. I made a post not too long ago that, like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe potentially hiring another coach. And I don't want to have like a ton of coaches under me. That's not what I see. I think maybe like having like a team of like 3 to 4 coaches max for me. And really just trying to like coach, like, you know, some of the newer generation upcoming in this powerlifting scene that we're seeing, you know, kind of just like explode. You're seeing like all these teenage lifters come out of nowhere. But yeah, I think, you know, eventually growing a team of coaches that they will, you know, grow their roster, and then obviously get into a bigger facility, start hosting meets would be cool. Yeah, I think that would be like long term for sure, like hosting meets, maybe taking like a good amount of people to these like national competitions, regional competitions, and really just taking a team of like good lifters. Yeah. That's kind of where I see things going, and that maybe that'll change, but that's kind of like the vision I have currently. Yeah.
Does that make you nervous to kind of cede control?
Yeah.
And that's a challenge
Yeah.
for all you business owners out there. The fact that you need to hire is something to celebrate, but it is also the other like fear and anxiety is to then give your identity, teach someone to emulate it.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, 100%. I had this again conversation with my girlfriend Jenny, and I was like, I definitely want to hire somebody else, but I think it's going to be kind of like giving not the reins to somebody else, but just like trusting this person to represent top end, right? So it's like I think it's going to be very difficult for me because like I'm the type of guy who I rather do things on my own and like instead of like asking for help. So yeah, I think the person that is like, again, I'm not in a rush to try and hire a coach. I feel like if the right person comes along and I'm just like, okay, like this person could really, benefit the gym, I think they're a good coach and I think they will continue to grow with the business for sure. But yeah, that's definitely something that I'm very nervous about doing. And like anything else, I think it's just going to be kind of like a growing process for me. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and, my roster is capped, but, I'm going to let them take on some clients and just kind of see how they do. So, I mean, you've obviously hired people. So like any advice on doing that?
Yeah, I think to everybody listening out there, I didn't actually. So Uplift has been around since 2018, and I did not actually get a team together until like yesterday. Not yesterday, but very recently, because I think that that's the hardest, most difficult thing about owning your own business is the people. You love powerlifting. That's your craft.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to use that is like, that's your skill, that's your craft. But another thing is like a business owner is another freaking hard thing. And as a business owner, guess what? Like you have to deal with people. And yeah, like I think all the business owners are listening. It's like we can all feel that viscerally because we would rather just do it ourselves. Like, okay, you just fucked it up, give it to me, I'll just fucking do it. But it's not like easy to do that when you're growing. And I think that you just have to set yourself up for the fact that you're gonna lose money. I know all these business owners are like, oh my God, Mel, you're telling me I'm gonna lose money. Because I've lost money. So you're going to lose money. And the reason being is because it is an insane amount of trial and error to find a team. Because these people you trust with your brand, like your brand is you. Mm-hmm. Top End is you. Uplift is me. And then you have to see about these people who can emulate that, and they won't do it without your investment, and that investment is monetary. You have to take the time to mentor. You will suffer losses because some people won't work out. Like there's a lot of turnover to get to your team. It's taken me 6 years, and that's how it is. And every single person on your team, maybe you find them and they're just all about your brand, but to adapt to how people like to be communicated with, how are their personalities, everybody is different. And I will say the most difficult part of being a business owner in a stage of growth is to be okay with your monetary loss, because it's going to take money to find people, money to mentor them because you want them to understand what the brand is. And then also it just takes a lot of time, and you have to be patient, and it will challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged before. Because someone who you like to work alone, I like to work alone because I know that I can do it. Mm-hmm. Do it to perfection, do it the way that I want. You have to manage all these people's personalities. You make me laugh because you're like, oh, I'm only going to hire 3 to 4 people. But like, guess what? That's 3 to 4 insane headaches. Yeah. Because those 3 to 4 people will want you to talk to them differently, have different needs, have different expectations, have different learning styles, have different wants. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I guess that's a good way to look at it for sure. Um, yeah, so I'll take it one person at a time, I
one
guess.
person at a time,
Yeah,
and be okay with the fact like, oh my God, did I just really spend all this time searching for this person? And like, in business, time is absolutely money. So it will hurt your pocketbook, but at the end, like, be okay with it because it is going to reap your rewards, the end result.
yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, I think that's going to be the next step for top end is hiring a coach and just continue to try to grow the team. But it's like you said, I want to find somebody that is, just as excited as me about just powerlifting and training, and wanting to coach people and help them reach their goals. So yeah, I mean, when that time comes, I'll definitely make a more formal post and just kind of see who reaches out. And again, I'm not in a rush because like this is my first year of business. So I'm like, I'm still learning a lot of things, and I'm like, I need to get through like this first year that was like, not ups and downs, but just like a lot of like just learning things. Like when I first like opened a gym, there's just like a lot of like startup costs, right? They like maybe potentially people don't think about it, and it's like just little things like getting a water dispenser and having a plumber come out and put it, and it's like, and then you have people that don't show up or like maybe could do a terrible job at doing it. So a lot of that stuff is like, all right, I got the coaching thing down. I'm like, now I need to figure out the business stuff. And it's like things will always pop up. My toilet gets clogged like 2 months in a row, so I got to call a plumber to come take care of that. So just like little things like that I like, obviously like I knew was going to happen, but it's just like, you don't like, I don't know, I wasn't like planning for those things, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just kind of getting through this first year of business, and then moving into like potentially another location eventually. Like that's gonna be okay. Like now, I need to manage this bigger space, right? Now it's like, okay, I need to get more people in here, right? Cover overhead and stuff like that. So that's gonna be, more growing to do there. So it's like, again, I'm not in a rush to like hire somebody to help me with coaching. I was like, I much rather take like an extra few clients than like just like hire somebody because like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm in a crunch or something like that. Like I definitely don't want to do that. Again, I want the person that I do eventually hire to just like represent the brand.
And I will say, because you're like, oh, I didn't go to school for this. Like, I don't know anything about business, but I want, everybody listening, and especially you, and coming from someone who does business. Actually, I'm a huge proponent of you don't need higher education. Okay. And then you also don't need to know a lick of formal business. I have seen people with MBAs just fucking fail. Like, like, you're dumb. Because the way I think that when we think of business, I always tell my clients, like, it's a transfer of energy. It's like a relationship. And the way to success in business is exactly like what you're saying. It's to do it and to just allow yourself to go through those ups and downs and learn. Anybody, that like a ratatouille, anybody can cook, anybody can do business, okay? And the success of business is you get what you put in. And I want everybody to think about that. Do you need some help? Absolutely. Juan talked about like community. Do you need a lawyer? Absolutely. Do you need an accountant? Absolutely. Okay, so those are basics. But anybody can business. And I think that Juan shows that you can come from the most humble of backgrounds with no formal education, and you can continue. But it's that first step of, I'm going to do this because there's no other option for me in my life except to do it. That is the makings of a business owner. And then the rest is just infinite. Business is infinite, and it is a learning experience. So thank you for joining me on this podcast. For everybody out there, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so Instagram, email, anything like that. So the Instagram for the gym is Top End Strength, all one word, no periods, no underscores. My personal IG is Juan Chez underscore TES, or you can visit the website at topendstrength.com, all one word.
Awesome. And I will see you guys post nationals because we're 3 weeks out. And that wraps up the Lawyer Lifter podcast, aka Mel's Minutes. Catch this episode on Apple or Spotify. See you next time.